So yeah, let me show you what I'm going to be doing today. So this is actually the subject that I'm working on today is from a live stream that I did last night, which is part of my Autumn Colours workshop. So if you're on that workshop, you will have already seen this study. Obviously, I'm not going through the whole study today. Yesterday was like a 3.5 hour stream. Absolute troopers, the people who were on the workshop stayed right through the stream and painted. But what I thought would be useful, because today I need to finish this so that I can post it to we have like a private Facebook group for the workshop. And I thought this would be a nice opportunity to show you a little bit about how I mix greens. But I need the palette for that, obviously. So let's get the palette up. So greens, okay. So I'm pretty much, basically this is a value study that I'm painting over. So the subject, you can see the subject there on the top right of the screen. Now that is actually a photo that I've put through Photoshop and I've pixelated it. So in the Photoshop there's a filter and you go into pixelate and then mosaic. And the nice thing about it is it cuts all of the detail out. So obviously this workshop is mostly about these beautiful reds, greens and oranges and how to mix them. But let me show you some stuff about mixing greens today and how I approach them. It's probably going to be a fairly short session. We'll see, maybe a half an hour. I want to show you the tube colours that I use to mix the greens. So first we have titanium white. Now a yellow, you need a yellow to mix greens, right? But this is not just any old yellow. This is Michael Haeding Bright Yellow Lake and it's an arylide yellow. And the pigment is PY3. It's a very green yellow. It's a high value, high chroma, green yellow. Just for sake of comparison, I'll put some cad yellow out beside it so you can see the difference. Thanks, Karen. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I was so tired at the end of that stream. I shut down the cameras. I cleaned my palette and my brushes. I had a bowl of soup and I went to bed. But I really enjoyed it too. But it was kind of long. So look, you can see the difference. That's a cad yellow. Okay. And this is the arylide yellow. So I need a blue, right? Oh, what's this? Ivory black. Yeah. Ivory black is actually a blue. Let me show you why. People say don't paint with black. Well, if you want to make nice greens, I think it would help you if you have this handy. So let's take this off. I just wanted to show you that for comparison's sake. Let's not confuse the issue, huh? So if I take some of this arylide yellow, a similar pigment to this is Hansa Yellow, is PY74. Take a little bit of ivory black and mix them together. Ivory black is low chroma, low value blue. So this yellow is already tending towards green. So when I mix it with this low chroma blue, I get this beautiful green. The chroma isn't too high. It's tending slightly towards yellow. And you'll find a lot now. People talk about mixing greens and they'll have like get all your yellows out and get all your blues out. Cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, maybe a lemon yellow and a cad yellow. Well, I want to show you a slightly different approach. What we want, in order to be able to paint realistically, we want to be able to control the value, the hue and the chroma. Yes, I'm talking about Winsor, okay? Hello, Daniel, nice to see you. So this is mid to low value. That's a nice green, you know, it's a pretty good green. But what if I wanted it to be more blue than that? I could add a blue. But what I will add is this tuber paint is so old I've had to tape it up to keep it together. But this is Winsor and Newton Winsor green yellow shade. It's basically a phthalo green. Any phthalo green will work. Pick up a little bit of that, like the tiniest little bit, and mix that in and see how the color changes. It goes towards a beautiful, more of a blue green. Let's get a little bit out to the side and put some more of this in. It's tending towards a blue green, and for some rose petals, that's like, you want it to go more blue green. You can see the difference between them. But I'm not losing chroma. The problem is if you use the standard blues and greens, that people tend to try and use to mix greens. You end up with very, very little chroma. What's chroma? Okay. Just in case this is new to you, this is basically Munsell in a nutshell. There are three aspects of colour that we think about. There's the value, from light to dark. There's the hue, which you would say that's the name you call the colour: orange, blue, green. And there's the chroma, which people don't think about very much. So all of these are the same value. But this is a high chroma and this is low chroma. Another word you could think about for that, you could use for that, is intensity. Intensity. So what you'll find is it's difficult to get greens intense enough to paint things like red apples and some leaves, especially in the lower values if you just use the normal blues and yellows. I'll get that off my palette before I wash the brush in it. What about if I wanted like the highest chroma green, like this is like an electric green. You know, if I get some of this arylide yellow and put in some of the phthalo green, you're never going to need a chroma that high. It's crazy. That's really, really high chroma. The only time you might want as high a chroma as that is if you're painting leaves and you have like light coming through the leaf, because leaves are slightly transparent, you know, translucent. And when you get light coming through the leaf, you get this, sometimes a really, really high chroma color. So you might want sometimes to really push the chroma up really high. That's a really high, it's a quite high value, but really high chroma green. There's no black in that one. Okay, that's just the phthalo green with the arylide yellow. Actually, I'll put out some, just for sake of argument, I'll put out some, if I can get the palette full screen. Let's see if I can get the palette full screen. This will probably make more sense. Excuse me for getting in touch in front of the, let's see if this is going to work. Yeah. Let's disappear this apple. Oh wait, apple. Now you can see more clearly what I'm doing. You can use cad yellow if you like, it just doesn't come out as strong. So say I had some ivory black and I mixed it with a cad yellow. These are all Michael Haeding paints, by the way. It goes a lot more, it's more like an olive kind of a green. Much lower chroma. You see the difference there? So if you want this to come out as a nice strong green, then the arylide yellow is much, much better. But I could then put some, equally I could put some of the phthalo in and it will bring the chroma up. And it will send it more towards a blue-green. It will also drop the value. Usually what happens, if you don't mix things up to the same value when you're mixing them in, everything will change at once, the hue, the value, and the chroma. I like these ones because I paint a lot of roses, you probably know that. And if I want to go like right down the value scale, let's get these out of the way. I don't really want those on my palette from the painting. More black, you know, and take a little bit of this green, take a bit of that one actually. More blue one and mix that in and I get a really, really low value green. That's about the best low value green you can get. Deep shadows. I'm going to get a shot of this because just in case any gets on my painting, wouldn't want to spoil it. Irene, if you could use help with greens, you come to the right place. I see a lot of, the reason I thought I'd do a little session just on this is basically because these sessions that I do, impromptu live sessions, kind of Tuesdays and usually Thursdays, they're just like whatever I happen to be working on in the studio at the time. And I happen to be working on this today, this study and doing these leaves. So I thought it would be useful just to show you some quick stuff about greens. I'm going to paint some leaves as well, so you'll be able to see like how I use them, you know. Clean up the palette a little bit. So Lynn said, blue-green, what was that colour? This one over here, it's Winsor and Newton Winsor green yellow shade. But it's just a phthalo, it's a phthalo green. Any phthalo green will do. But often they're called viridian or whatever. You know, I wish they would, paint manufacturers would just call them all the same thing. So if I want this to go lighter, I can just take the green and add more yellow. But what happens if I add more yellow is obviously it becomes more of a yellow-green. If I want it to go up the value range without changing the hue too much, then I could add a white. Okay, so adding white, if I get some of this green with some white, this is titanium white, obviously is quite opaque. It doesn't affect the hue quite as much, but it does drop the chroma quite away. But that's actually useful, I think, when you're painting leaves, because if they're those kind of shiny, dark leaves that you get on roses, the light parts are kind of like a reflection, almost a direct reflection of the light. And they tend to be very low chroma. If I wanted to drop the chroma of these greens even more, by the chroma I might, you could say intensity. I know some people call it neutralizing, right? Now I know you probably have heard, a lot of you will have heard that the best way to neutralize a color, people will say, to drop the chroma, is basically the same thing. They say to mix in the complement. If I mixed in a red into this green, the hue would go all over the place. I'd lose control of the color. So if I want to drop the chroma of this green, what I will use is, this is raw umber. I mix a very low chroma color of the same value and mix between the two. So if I get raw umber, bring in a little bit of white, and I want some black in there as well, because raw umber is actually a yellow orange. This will make it closer to a neutral. So let's say if I've got like a neutral color there, and let's get this green, they're about the same value. So if I mix some of this neutral into this green, I get a low chroma green. We're just dropping the chroma. We're not really changing anything. We're not changing the hue much. We're mostly changing the chroma. And it's a really good way to do what people call neutralizing, which is really dropping chroma. It's a fantastic way to drop chroma, you know. I can drop it, keep on dropping it until it gets to the point where it's almost grey. Really fine control. So, you know, I basically got, you can see that's getting greyer and greyer as I mix more in. But I'll just put a little bit of colour on anyway, just to show you, like, here, this area here is like full shadow, very dark. So for this, you know, I can take the green that I've mixed here. If I want it to make it a bit more of a blue-green, I can add a little bit of the phthalo. And I'm painting this over the existing study. So all I'm really doing is adding a little bit of chroma and keeping the values about what they are. Yes, you could. Kathleen says it seems easier to add a touch of raw umber. You could do that, but without bothering to bring it to the same value. Yes, you could do that. But the problem with doing that is that you will change the value as well. Sometimes by quite a bit. So the lighter part, as it comes out of the shadow and into the light, this leaf will come here. Yeah, I've got almost no internet connection here, so I'm gonna leave the stream here. Hopefully that was enough to show you a little bit